All righty. Just one too many pages. Moving on to item 10.4 is adopt resolution approving notice of intention regarding oh, geez, let me get the readers. You got to learn by now. All right. Regarding transition to district-based elections. I'm going to invite Janet Colson, our city attorney, to make the report for us, please.
Thank you. And I see that you've got Jim Priest up there. He's one of my partners at Best and Krieger. So he will help me out. He's an election specialist and will help me out if I need that. So first of all, let me start off and forgive me if this is pretty basic, but I think we should start at the beginning. There are two different systems, electoral systems, and the one that we use here in the city of Pleasant Hill right now is an at-large electoral system. And that means that each council member can live anywhere in the city. The entire city votes for the council members. It provides citywide representation, and that's what we have right now. And that is in contrast to a by-district electoral system, where the city is divided into districts, and each council candidate has to live in the district. Only the people in that district can vote for that particular candidate. And so each council member is elected from a district. They live there, the people vote for them there. And that is the basis for a letter that we received on January 19th from Kevin Shankman of Shankman and Hughes, alleging a violation of the California Voting Rights Act, because our at-large system of voting, it was claimed, dilutes the ability of Latino and Asian voters to elect candidates of their choice or to otherwise influence the outcome of a city election. And so this letter was sent by Mr. Shankman on behalf of the Southwest Voter Registration Education Project and the Pleasant Hill Community Alliance. And so the city is faced with a choice, and tonight is the night to make that choice. There is a resolution of intention to go to district election by district elections, and you will either adopt that resolution or not tonight. If you want some more information about the California Voting Rights Act, I think there's a very good summary in the staff report, starting about page 2 and going on to page 3. I won't try to summarize that right now, but I will tell you that in making the decision to go to by district elections or staying with an at-large system, it is notable that there is no city that has prevailed in a lawsuit concerning by district elections, a violation of the California Voting Rights Act. No city has prevailed to date. There is some ongoing litigation, but it is something that is difficult for cities to in which to prevail. So we have produced this resolution as the first step in a procedure to go to by district elections. The letter that we received on January 19th, it's all very statutory. It has a 45-day time frame on it. 45 days was yesterday, Sunday, and it rolls to March 6th, which is today. So today is the 45th day. So we need to either adopt this resolution tonight or decide that we're not going to go to by district elections. Once you have adopted a resolution of intention, you have a very short time frame in which to accomplish the statutorily outlined task to go to district elections. 90 days is what the statute gives you. There is a possibility of getting an additional 90 days, but only if you have a stipulation from the opposing side. You have to stipulate in writing that that would be allowable. So 90 days is 3 months. It's a very short time frame to accomplish all of the things that the statute requires that you do. First off, you're going to have 4 public hearings. The first 2 public hearings are to collect public input. There are no maps drawn or anything happening with maps at those 2 meetings. That's to collect public input, hear from the public their opinions and thoughts and advice from the public. And then the next two meetings, you have draft maps that you discuss and you take public input on those maps. And I think it's very important to note, I've looked at all of the public comment that has come in for the item tonight, and I've noticed that there seems to be some confusion about who actually draws these maps. The council doesn't draw the maps. Professional demographers are used. And in a town the size of Pleasant Hill, it's going to be very clear when you look at how the maps are being drawn, exactly where the lines pretty much need to be. This is not something that is going to be complicated, I don't believe, but it is something that it does require professional demographers because it's based upon the numbers. And so I also would like to note that there's been a number of comments concerning the independent commission idea. And I'd like to run through that very briefly for you, just to give you kind of an outline of what's required there, because it's easy enough to say, oh, just have an independent commission do it. But remember that we have 90 days. We've got 3 months with a potential of maybe getting 3 more, maybe. So an independent commission is established first off by ordinance or a resolution. That has to be drafted, that has to be brought back to the council. Council has to approve that. Then you have to develop a commissioner appointment process, and you have to accept applications. And then once you've done all that, the independent commission has to be selected. Council can't select them. You use a screening panel, maybe retired judges. There are a number of different options there. But at that point, once you've done all that, you're pretty much at 3 months. I mean, that is really 90 days right there. But that's not the end of the process at all. So then you've got this independent screening panel that picked these commissioners, and the commissioners have to be trained. And then they have to start where you would start tomorrow, because the 90 days starts tomorrow. They would have to hold the 4 public hearings. This is not something, an independent commission is not usually done with the initial districting. It's done with the redistricting usually. That's why when you look at the statute, you see redistricting commissions always. We estimate that it would take, if you used an independent commission, at least 9, maybe 10 months, could be as long as a year. And we just don't recommend that because of the extreme time crunch that we're going to be under here. If we make 90 days, we can do it, certainly can do it. It's just going to be a singular focus, and we're going to be very focused on making sure that we meet that time frame. So I am open for questions, and Jim is open for questions if you have any. I don't know if I've forgotten anything, Jim. If I have, please let me know. Okay.
All right. Council, do you have questions of staff?
I do. I have one question. Part of the first 2 public meetings, the input, is that when the communities of interest is discussed at those? That's something with I can't remember where I read it, but discussing communities of interest. This is in addition to the minority aspect of the demographer's job, the communities of interest. Is that what comes up in the first of those first 2 meetings?
Jim, would you like to take that one?
Certainly. Good evening, Mr. Vice Mayor, members of the City Council, Jim Priest, Best and Krieger. Yes, during those first 2 meetings, the pre-map hearings, you can certainly take input and comment from the public about relevant communities of interest in the city of Pleasant Hill. We wouldn't be presenting draft maps to the public at that time, but we can certainly collect information from the public of what they view to be important communities of interest that should be kept together in any districting map.
Okay. And I presume at that time you would explain what a communities of interest, that definition is, because that seems to be all over the place.
I'd be happy to explain it to you now if you'd like.
That'd be
Um,
great. That would be great.
Let me just take a half step back and explain in a very broad sense what the rules are for drawing district boundaries. The California Voting Rights Act is the law that determines whether you have to do this or not. If the decision is made to move forward, then you have the Federal Voting Rights Act. The Federal Act is the one that really tells you what the legal standards are. Now, there's also the California Fair Maps Act, which also incorporates a lot of the FIVRA provisions. The fundamental thing you have to observe when you draw districts is keep the population as nearly equal as possible. Now, the Supreme Court didn't say perfectly equal because the Supreme Court knows that that's impossible. You'd be drawing really weird lines in different places if you're trying to go for absolute mathematical equality. So what the law allows is to vary that by as much as 10% total deviation in population. And in doing that, that's when you factor in things like contiguity of the districts, the geography of your community, communities of interest. And a community of interest, keeping them together. Communities of interest are communities that are held together by social, ethnic, language commonalities, other types of social connections that bind a community together. It's a bit of a broad concept, but those are the kind of things you look for in a community of interest. So a community of interest could also be, just a particular geographic connection. Some towns will have the West End, or they'll have North Hills, or they'll have, East Vale, or different areas that just over the years have commonly been understood to be their own particular community within the city. And the law does allow to deviate off of perfect population equality in each district in order to keep those communities together. Again, that's something that you can hear input in the first two public hearings from speakers and get their take on what communities of interest are out there and what they believe should be preserved in one particular district as opposed to split up into maybe two districts.
Thank you.
All right, Councilmember Vincent.
I have a timeline question. I just want to get clarified. So if we adopt the resolution of intention tonight, we have 30 days for the two public meetings.
No, you have 90 days for the 4 public meetings.
Well, let me go through what I'm talking about.
Okay.
So we have 30 days from what I saw in the code for the first two public meetings. Then we have 45 days to deal with the maps, which gets us out to 75 days. So because a lawsuit can't be filed for 90 days, is it implied we have those extra 15 days to complete the process?
Jim, would you like to take
You
that?
have a total, sure. You have a total of 90 days as the outside envelope before a lawsuit can be filed. And then the first two public hearings, the pre-map hearings, have to be within 30 days of each other. So there's that other time factor. And then the two post-map hearings have to be within 45 days of each other. And the 90-day outside envelope allows for some scheduling issues and things like that to be ironed out. But yeah, there are 3 particular timing requirements: the 90-day outside envelope, 30 days pre-map, 45 days post-map.
So that's the days between the meetings. You said the first 2 meetings have to be within 30 days of each other, and the second 2 must
Over a
within.
period of, yes, 2 pre-map hearings over a period of no more than 30 days. So it's
But not
within 30
necessarily
days.
from day one.
Not necessarily from day one. No, that is correct. So that would allow you some time to agendize, take a week or 2 to agendize the first public hearing and then move forward. This is something that I could certainly work with Ms. Colson, your city clerk, and our demographer, and come up with an appropriate schedule in order to meet those timelines.
Thank you.
Councilmember Chess, anything before public comment?
Have we reached out to Shakeman and Hughes yet about any kinds of extensions?
No, I was going to wait and see what happened tonight.
Okay. And the other thing I wanted to ask you was in terms of the screening panels. I heard retired judges. I'm just curious in your experience, or Jim, if any, is there anybody else other than that we could look at if we wanted to do something like this? I'm just curious.
Yes, but there are a whole list of qualifications or requirements for them. It could Jim, would you like to take that?
Yeah, I can certainly respond to that one. What the Fair Maps Act requires with an independent commission is that the selection process cannot be directly by the council or by any elected official. And so typically what's done is there is a screening panel. That screening panel may be retired judges. It may be, I know of one city where they had 3 members of the public selected by the city clerk and the city manager and the city attorney or something. That was kind of a special case. But what the Fair Maps Act specifically says is it cannot be an appointment by the council or by any individual elective officer. So it also can't be a mayoral appointment in lieu of a council appointment. In my experience, that does take some time to set up, as Ms. Colson had mentioned. And, time is a factor here. Unlike redistricting, which we just went through with a whole bunch of our agencies last year, they typically had between 9 months and a year to get their process done from the time the census data dropped. You don't have that kind of time under the CVRA in this case.
Okay. Anything else? All right. With that, we will open up public comment. Invite the public to speak at this point. I do have 2 speaker cards. If you'd like to speak here in the chamber, please fill one out, pass it to our clerk. See, comments are limited to 3 minutes per speaker. You may provide public comments in person or through Zoom. Meeting ID 820-4248-8959, passcode 885013. We also received prior to the council meeting written correspondence. Get my glasses so I don't butcher your names, and I apologize on the pronunciation. Kathy T. Garden, Courtney Kuhn, Jan Passion, Yehudit Lieberman, David Levesos, Amanda Sakatz, Rebecca Auerbach, and Abe Doherty. All right. So with that, we will invite our public speakers in the chambers. First, I have a Joe Stokely. Come on down. Would you like to make a comment?
Good evening, Vice Mayor Wren and council members. Joe Stokely, longtime Pleasant Hill City resident. I am totally against this proposition that this law firm has sent you a letter on. I think I'm not aware of any voter oppression here in the city of Pleasant Hill. I believe if this was passed, I would be oppressed with my vote because now I have a lot less to say about my city that I live in. To have it all chopped up. All these rules and deadlines. It sounds like it's expensive. It sounds like it's going to take valuable resources away from other things that we still have problems with that haven't been solved. This is a great city, but we have problems just like every other town. And this just seems like a new thing to add to the list of issues that need to be addressed. So, I just think we should fight. I understand that a lot of towns, let's have a new precedent because I feel this is a form of extortion from this law firm. If you want to buy some time, we have 30 days, 90 days, these quick turnaround times. Just tell the guy, hey, sorry, we're going to fight you. We don't have a problem here in Pleasant Hill. I think this would be a problem, and I am disappointed that there's not more people here for this. I think this is a very important issue. I think if this passes, this would be the beginning of a new and different Pleasant Hill. You won't see it right away. I think it'll be 5-10 years down the road, but I am firmly 100% against this. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Joe. Next speaker card, Andre Oblinsky.
Right, this time I moved this up a little bit. Oh, as far as it goes. Okay, sorry. So Vice Mayor, he's renting. Saw your license plate, love it. And council members. I come to you as a person who did run in a citywide election and will be running again. I certified my election again. So first we talk about districting. We have a special interest group pushing for this. not necessarily representative of the marginalized communities, of which I am one. The Slavic community, we are a group within a group, and no one knew about this from everyone I talked to. I also live in one of the lower income neighborhoods. I live in what we call the Bermuda Triangle, Pleasant Hill. We live in Sherman Oaks, Fair Oaks neighborhood where I'm at, and we are on this side of the highway. And no one in my neighborhood, with the exception of a few, knew about this happening. So I kind of will be part of the camp that says we should really look and think about this, and maybe before making a decision on districting, going to those communities and asking them what their opinion of districting is before we district. If we look at our current composition of elected officials right now, we have 10 elected officials, of which those 3 of them are women and 1 of them is an Asian American. So I think we have a fairly decent representation, could be better. We have fairly decent representation within our elected officials currently. If we look at the pros of districting, yes, it'd be a lower cost of entry. We might have more people come on board to run for council. Might be a little bit more economic diversity, but also there'd be a lack of representation, which means if, let's say, the person who's running my district doesn't want to represent me very well, who am I going to go to? So if we do district, I would ask that we look at either a 4-district with a mayor. So if the person in a representative district isn't representing that person, they could then go to the mayor if they have a complaint, and or a 3-district with a 2 at large, so that there could be equal representation as well. It's unfortunate, again, that we are forced into this as a city. I would like to say also, I want to know who is marginalized and how do we define this metric within this framework? And that we look towards Concord and Martinez and look at what has worked and what hasn't worked with them as well. So thank you. I appreciate your time. And again, I am not for districting. Thank you.
Thank you, Andre. We'll go to our online. Do we have any hands raised for public comment on this item?
There's one hand raised.
Okay, can we let him in, please?
Go ahead, Mr. Offerman.
Good evening, Dick.
This is your video. I can hit it yet. Oh, now you have to go back behind again.
Or is this
Good
Karen?
evening.
Oh,
My
there's-
name is Dick Offerman and I live in Pleasant Hill. I'm speaking tonight to voice my support for an independent commission to be set up to create the new by-district maps. Note that due to your delay in acting on this state mandate, there's now a great amount of work to do in a very short amount of time. Note that you are the ones who backed us into this time constraint. Your failure to act timely has also brought us a lawsuit. You knew it was coming. This lawyer sued many cities, and yet you decided not to act way back when. Please do not spend our tax dollars now paying for an unnecessary lawsuit, one that you brought on. When mentioning the very short amount of time to implement the state mandate, it's hard to have sympathy when you realize that Concord implemented by-district voting for city council elections 5 years ago. But that didn't happen in Pleasant Hill 5 years ago. While it may not be illegal, this city council has kept voters in some areas within our city from having fair city council representation for at least the last 3 city council elections. This city council knew of the state mandate, but it seems they selfishly chose not to act. Sadly, it is easy to conclude that the city council may have avoided the mandate for 5 years just to keep themselves in office. Did you delay because you didn't want to lose your seats? Through last year, 2 council members lived in one neighborhood and 3 lived in another. You all knew that by district voting in place, there could be only 1 council member from each of those 2 neighborhoods. Just the fact that we now face a lawsuit alone shows that you haven't acted responsibly up to this point, So it would be wrong to allow this city council to be involved in the district maps effort. I disagree with the city attorney's dismissal of the independent commission timeline tonight. We have to have an independent commission. We will work to be sure that no one selected for that commission has any association with the city, the council, any committees or commissions. And because of that list of designated alternates noted on the February 26th agenda, consent item 8.2, none of their spouses will be allowed on that independent commission either. How critical is this mapping effort? These districts will be used for the next 4 city council elections. Please select having an independent commission. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Offerman. Are there any further hands raised?
There are 2 more hands raised.
Okay, you let in the next caller, please.
Hello, council members, Adi Olvera. I'm just glad that we're finally here talking about districting in Pleasant Hill. As I've spoken up in last week or previous council meeting about our experience in Concord, I want to say that Concord didn't do an independent commission, which is something that I feel they made a huge mistake because how the lines were drawn by city council to protect their seats as much as possible. It was seen as unfair by the community. It was seen like it was a political play, so that the Monument community would not have a good representative. And I want to share that Shankman, who also sued Concord, never sued the city of Concord for any delays because he's not there to make money off this process. He's wanting a fair elections in Pleasant Hill or any city that he sues, so that to make sure that they do what's right. Because Mr. Offerman is correct. You could have done this on your own many years ago. So I'm a little disappointed that no conversation has happened with Mr. Attorney Shankman, because you would probably find out this on your own, that he will probably not sue you for any delays. You will most likely get extensions. I can't speak for him because I haven't spoken to him, but this was our experience in Concord. So I do want the Pleasant Hill to consider, you council members to consider public hearings, multiple languages, and speak to the different neighborhoods. You might need to do several more if you can't have adequate translation in each public hearing that you host. So I recommend that you have more than 4 public hearings and that some be only in the languages like Spanish or Vietnamese or any other language where special groups exist in Pleasant Hill. I also recommend that you, that you've continued doing independent commission and you seek the extensions immediately from Attorney Shankman, because I believe he will grant them, and that the residents of Pleasant Hill will appreciate having more time to speak to you about what their communities look like. Thank you.
Thank you, Addie. Next hand raised, please.
Good evening.
Hi, welcome, Karen.
Hi, my name is Karen Yap, and I've lived in Pleasant Hill since 1984. Tonight, I hope you approve the resolution to move to bi-district elections. As was explained in the staff report, you really have no choice. Fighting it will cost us potentially millions of dollars. No city has ever prevailed. But what is missing from the resolution is the process. You received a demand letter on January 19th. Now we're at the end of that deadline. What did the city do for the past 45 days? Instead of working on this critical issue, you spent almost all the council meetings since then trying to find a way not to appoint the 3rd place candidate. Why wasn't the city proactive in making this change? It was not necessary to wait for a lawsuit. The California Voting Rights Act has been in place since 2002. We now have a very tough schedule ahead. There's the 90-day deadline. You must hire a demographer, and as discussed earlier, you must hold 4 public meetings during that time, at least. And first, you must establish who will be doing this work. Many residents have asked you to set up a totally independent commission. Martinez had to do this after they were sued by residents for the absurd map approved by their council. The council selected that absurd map to keep 3 council members seated. Had you been working on this for the past 45 days, you'd have had time to set up this independent commission. But your lack of action is now being proposed as justification for not doing it. Tonight, I'm asking you to approve an independent commission to work on this. The members should be selected by a random draw of names. In Martinez, where on their second round, they did use an independent commission, the members were not judges, as were mentioned earlier. They were members of the public. That independent commission should be empowered to make the final decision on which map will be approved. The city council is too biased on this issue to make that final decision. I don't agree with the city attorney that this process would be any slower. Unlike the council, a commission would not be limited to 1 meeting every 2 weeks. Volunteers would have to agree to a robust schedule before submitting their names. At least put it out there and see how much interest there is. I know I wouldn't submit my name if it was an option for me. Tonight, please approve the resolution and an independent commission to establish district election boundaries. Thank you.
Thank you, Karen. Are there further hands raised?
There's an additional hand raised.
Okay, let him in, please.
Hello, Vice Mayor and council members. My name is Michelle Simone and I'm a Pleasant Hill resident. I want to share how excited I was to see Pleasant Hill districting on the agenda. And now Pleasant Hill has an opportunity to show the community it doesn't give diversity and inclusion lip service. Today, the city can take action and build on its diversity proclamations and our diversity commission, and we can include a systemic and institutional change. Today, our city can stand up in support of the California Voting Rights Act and recognize that at-large elections are inherently discriminatory, therefore making the move to bi-district elections. Today, our city council can do the right thing for all of our residents by recognizing our diverse residents and rededicate the city to diversity, equity, and inclusion. Today, each of you has the opportunity to show our community that Pleasant Hill is committed to diversity, equity, and inclusion from the top down by moving from at-large to bi-district elections with maps drawn by an independent commission. And I hope this is the messaging you convey to the community. Please ask for an extension. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any further hands raised online?
There are no more hands raised.
Okay. A last call for online. Seeing none. Anyone else in the chamber? Oh, I'm sorry. I got one card, a late card here. Qui Tran, come on down. On the other side of the dais.
Yes, I was on the other side. Name is Qui Tran. I'm a resident of Pleasant Hill. Before I start, I want to state though that I am affiliated with a number of local, state, and federal agencies. I am here today though, my own accord, and all my statements and opinions are my own and do not reflect any organization for which I have an affiliation. Mr. Vice Mayor, City Council, City staff, stand before you today as an immigrant, as a member of the Asian American Pacific Islander Group, and as a resident of North Pleasant Hill. Presently, foreign-born residents comprise 20% of Pleasant Hill. AAPIs comprise 14% of the community, and the population north of Alhambra and Taylor comprise 31% of the city. I point out these numbers because none of those identities are represented on the city council. It is not to say that any of you are not qualified. As you know, I have tremendous respect for your knowledge and work ethic, and I feel that you have all provided exceptional service for the value to the community at large. But when it comes to representation, meaning someone from the communities that I come from, I feel that is lacking. The city wants to be a welcoming place, and all of you have stated you want the city to reflect its diversity. But there's a marked difference from merely creating diversity proclamations or resolutions to actually having someone from an underrepresented group sit next to you at the dais and be part of the discussion. Those additional viewpoints make for richer discussions and ultimately for more inclusive and more equitable decision-making. Hyperlocal elections, in order to increase diversity, does come with challenges, but those risks do not outweigh its benefits. Pleasant Hill is projected to be a majority minority community in less than 10 years. So it's not a matter of if, but when diversity will increase on the council. And if district elections is the way to achieve that, then many of us in the community are supportive of it. So as you move forward into this process, we strongly urge you to support the staff's proposed resolution and make it a transparent process with an independent commission tasked with gathering lots of community input. It's a chance to put into action what you've all proclaimed Pleasant Hill to be. And why? Because diversity is important, representation is important, and we are urging you to help us get us there. Thank you for allowing me to address you today. I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Tran. Last call for any public comment. We're all good online. We'll close public comment and bring it back to the dais. Which council member would like to go first? Anyone?
I guess I'll go
Councilmember
first.
Noack?
I have mixed emotions when we got this letter. Having been on the council for the last 8 years and have spent a good portion of the time working toward trying to be a more inclusive community, starting in 2017 with our resolution making it a welcoming community. I think we have done a really good job of that. I think while we don't necessarily represent a diverse group up here, before this current group is here, Ken Carlson was our council member, and he was the first openly gay council member anywhere in Contra Costa County. I think that speaks a lot about the ability of this body to be diverse. I think over the last several elections, Karen Mitchoff was from the north part of the town, David Durant was. We've had a mixture all over the town. Now, has it been diverse and from its nationality or race? No. But I think right now, Pleasant Hill, and I'm glad to see this, has increased in diversity with 14% Asian, 12% Latino. But I think we have a wide range of, Slavic people. We have a lot of Eastern European people. There's a lot of different, we have LGBTQ community. There's a lot of communities than just, Asians or Latinos, which are statistics from our census. And in my opinion, I think we've really tried hard to embody that. I know our staff is very diverse. Our police force is more diverse than our city is. Our staff is more diverse. And our council is not necessarily, but part of that has to do with people that run. And it's not just a cost factor, it's a time factor. I was at the Girl Scouts were asking me how much time I spend on this job. And I do hold quite a few seats, maybe more than others, but I probably spend 20 to 30 hours every week in my role as city council. Not everybody can do that. I'm fortunate because I'm left the corporate community and I'm able to do that. And there are a lot of people that may not be able to put the time into that. So these are all factors that come into play in running. It was interesting to me, Mr. Shankman's letter used as evidence of our lack of diversity by pointing out that Daniel Rodriguez only got 1,000 votes. Well, I don't know if Mr. Shankman knew, but Daniel Rodriguez bowed out of the race shortly after the filing was closed. And I think it was actually pretty impressive that he got over 1,000 votes when he didn't campaign, he didn't participate in anything. So, that letter, using that as an example, I think is really poor. So, to me, it was kind of upsetting because I feel like we have tried so hard to be a welcoming and inclusive city to sort of then get slapped and told we're not is really hard just because the four of us up here happen to be white. We do have difference of opinions and we come from different backgrounds. And so To me, it was just, it was a little bit of a slap in the face that for some reason, because the four of us happen to be white or five of us when we add Tim, that we can't represent everybody. But I do understand, why the California Voters' Right Act was put into place. I understand the value of it. We certainly would love to see a more diverse representation in our elected officials, not just from Asians and Latinos, but LGBTQ, from the Slavic area, from, all realms. So, it's kind of strange that when we do this, we're looking at race specific and not like the LGBTQ community. I don't understand why that's not included in it. So be that as it may, I'm a little concerned that a lot of residents, when they find out they're only going to get to vote once every 4 years for one person, that they may feel like they're not getting enough of a say in their government. Right now, they get to pick 5 and they get to vote every 2 years. So they get time to do that. A couple of people have come up to me and talked to me about that. So, but be that as it may, I think as everybody's pointed out, we really don't have a choice. We're going to have to do this because we don't have the money to fight it. Santa Monica, I think, has spent already $14 million fighting this, fighting theirs. 14 million. We don't have 14 million. Library cost us, 20 million. We don't have 14 million to spend on anything. Certainly not, Joe, unless you're willing to put up the 14 million.
No, I'm not really. Who's the 14 million going to? This law firm?
It's cost of lawyers to fight this in a court. Yeah. And then if they lose, they will have to pay attorney's fees on the other side. So it's a monumental number to fight it. And honestly, everybody that has tried has lost. And so I don't think we really have a choice but to go forward with this. I think it's going to change. Joe, we can't have public comment. We can't have a public vote on it because that again would fly in the face of this concept. Because if we had a public vote, theoretically the majority win and the minorities would be marginalized. So you can't even do a public vote or anything like that to make this decision. It has to be our decision. And it really comes down to money. We can't fight this. And we have to hope that in the long run, this has the effect that it is intended to have. And all we can do is the best thing we can do at this point for the city. And while I don't necessarily agree with the whole thing, I do understand that we may not have a choice and we have to go forward.
Okay, thank you, Councilmember Noah. Councilmember Vincent.
It's difficult to follow Councilmember Noah. I think you've been here 12 years?
I've been here 8 years.
8 years, and I've been here 2 weeks. So there's a bit of a difference in our experience. But I've lived in Pleasant Hill a long time, and I do agree that Pleasant Hill is becoming more and more diverse. Just on my street alone in the last couple of years, a lot of younger families have moved in. There's a lot of diversity. I work at a lot of events in town. I'm doing check-in and I'm seeing the crowd. And again, there's a lot of diversity at all of our community events. I thought Santa Monica's fees are up to 22 million. Is it?
No.
It doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter. It's a lot of money. I used to represent school districts. And when this issue came up, I would hear people talk like one of our audience members tonight. But ultimately, the decision was, if you fight it, you're going to probably lose. And it's just a waste of your money. So it's better to move forward and try to deal with the districting. So the resolution tonight, I think, is our resolution of intent. I believe that's all we're doing tonight. And based on what I've seen of the resolution, I don't think we have any choice based on what I know about the situation. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember. Councilmember Chess.
Yeah, so I believe it or not, and I think contrary to probably some of the public comment tonight, I believe we're getting out in front of this. Yeah, right now, we have the vast majority of residents in Pleasant Hill are Caucasian. And right now, so is your council. Yet we're going to take this, it's looking, we don't have a lot of choice, that we're going to take this step to ensure going forward that people from all different nationalities and races and ethnic background and sexual orientation, all of that, they're going to have an opportunity to participate in this government. They could before, and now they're going to have a chance to do that at the district level. I have two concerns, and one of them has nothing to do with that participation. I'm all in favor of that kind of participation. I want everybody involved. I also acknowledge that we're not a perfect city. We're not a perfect state, county, or country. Right. And so we're going to take these steps to get to where we want to be as a city. But, you know, what I'm concerned about is not that. What I'm concerned about is a rushed timeline and putting, you know, an independent commission that is put together poorly is not a very good independent commission. An independent commission that is put together correctly with the right amount of time is potentially something to consider. But right now, the way this is set up, I'm concerned that we're not going to have the time to put together the quality. You know, if we're going to do an independent commission, I want it done right. This city deserves that. Okay. And so right now, at this time, on this day, I feel like we don't have enough information or time to do something like that yet. We may get an extension, and then I think we can look at that potentially. But right now, our hands are a little bit tied, and that's fine. I don't have a problem with moving forward with district elections and allowing more people to participate. But I'm a little bit concerned about that. I'm also concerned about other matters that have to do, and I was talking to some city council member in a city that had districts. And she told me that there was something going on in her district. And I'm just laying this out here for everybody. Okay. I'm just going to lay this out here, and I'm not going to throw my, you know, this is wrong or this is right. But this is what she told me. She said that there was something that was happening in her district within 500 feet of her house. And she could not, she had to recuse herself. And so what happened is that on a pretty serious land use issue in this city, there was no local representation because she had to recuse herself. And so the rest of the city, had to decide on that. They had to decide that issue for that neighborhood that they weren't in. And so how does that sit with you, community? How does that sit with you? It doesn't sit well with me. But I do understand the need for diversity and having diversity of thought on the dais. And I appreciate it. And now it's time. But this isn't a panacea. You know, it's not. But overall, I'm very happy to potentially, you know, have more minority participation in our city. Thank you.
Thank you. And then just my general comments. Obviously, you know, I have a fiduciary responsibility being a council member for the city, and budgets being where they are, and being on the budget committee before, and a business owner. And I try to run the city similarly and responsibly. Financially, we just can't take that hit to fight it, even though it kind of doesn't sit well. Because I feel as council members, we've always had the whole city of Pleasant Hill in our hearts. And when we make decisions, and it's not just about one neighborhood over another neighborhood. I think districting can be well attended in certain circumstances. But I believe that the people of Pleasant Hill put their trust in us to make at-large decisions. But we're faced with a lawsuit with this individual. And, you know, looking at the safe harbor guidelines of the law, you know, I think that we need to fall within those, because I don't want to jeopardize the finances of our city in a long and lengthy battle, even though, you know, some of us really do want to fight, because I think some of the accusations that are brought are pretty vague against us. And I think we could prove them to be false if we fought them, but at what cost? You know, I believe in diversity. You know, I helped, you know, with Councilmember Nowak to develop our resolution, you know, developed diversity commissions, you know, with Councilmember Carlson and Nowak. We Rainbow Flag for LGBTQ month, amongst, and many, many other things. So it's not that we're adverse to embracing our diversity. If anything, hopefully our actions over the years have shown that, you know, we're a very welcoming and inclusive community. So I think some of the statements and some of the things that are being inferred by this lawsuit against us are not true about people of Pleasant Hill, and that kind of hurts. And, you know, you know, Kui, you came up here as an individual, as a citizen, but you wanted an at-large election as a, you know, Asian American and an immigrant. And so I think Pleasant Hill has proved that given the opportunity for a qualified candidate, the city of Pleasant Hill, I know the district flows over a little bit outside of Pleasant Hill, but I think we've shown and demonstrated that a well-qualified candidate of a marginalized community can be elected in this community. And so I haven't seen those candidates come through in elections. I would like to see more people. Sometimes when I ran in 2022 or 2020, again, 3 of us ran unopposed and we all got our seats again. So there's plenty of opportunity. But I get it. I understand it. I'm not happy about the lawsuit, but I think that we need to go forward with it. And with that, I'll put through the motion to approve this. We have a second?
Second.
All right, we have a motion from Vice Mayor Rinn and a second from Councilmember Chess. Any further discussion? All right, we're gonna have a roll call vote, please.
Noack,
Yes.
Rin,
Yes.
Chess,
Yes.
Vincent.
Yes.
All right, the intention has been passed. That we'll adjourn our meeting to our next city council meeting, March 20th, 2023. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Jim.